Okay, so Flippy, I've been able to figure out your goal today. I just enjoy discussing leagues.
Yeah, there it is. I wanted to use you and your brain. Of course, like naturally as a developer, when you work on stuff, you watch a lot of people making content of that, right? When Leagues 1 and Leagues 2 launched, it was impossible to keep up with everyone because there was a lot of content. But I think one of the few things that always remained when things quieted down was like seeing, one video pop up from you about like, future thoughts or whatever. I think there's been 3 cases now where I've watched like one of your video and I'm just like, I want to sit there and tell you something in person. I'm like, why are you thinking like that? Like,
Yes.
Think about this, and this. First of all, I think you already fill a really good gap in having someone who sort of gets the gears going for a lot of people. Well, there's always nice having someone that just lays out the meta for everything, right? But there's also having someone who just sort of gets the hype up and gets people, gets discussions going, essentially,
I love
I think you do that really well, so.
The concept of leagues. I gotta ask you, did you like completely birth this idea, or was it floating around and then you grabbed it and said, I'll lead this?
No. So Leagues was actually a thing before I came into the company. So I was trained and mentored by Kieran. One day he was like, takes like an hour today and watch like one of the company live streams that they do. So I listened very closely to that call about their plans for it and stuff. I was very, very excited because they were gonna get working on it like right after Song of the Elves. I then got to know that I was gonna be put on the Mauritania expansion to work on Sins of the Fathers, I think. I was like, I shouldn't do this, but then I went to our project manager and I was like, is there any way I could be put on Leagues instead of that? And I was like, I have a history with like playing a lot of seasonal games. And I think I could contribute in some way or another. And he was like, yeah, sure. And then he just put me on the project. And I was like, fuck yeah.
So you were just a new guy and you were like, I'm going to go for this.
Yeah, pretty much.
Are you the most excited for this league than any other league so far? Oh no, I meant that to be a softball.
I think so. Naturally, I have a bias in it because I've worked more on this one. Okay, so let's boil it down to what I really like about this league compared to other leagues is that it's way more dynamic. I keep on saying that.
Absolutely.
Maybe it sounds like a fluff word. It has a ARPG elements in it, right? Which makes it really dynamic in the sense that you get fragments and their base and set effects will, I think, in a fairly strong manner affect the way you want to play. If you want to play like efficiently, right? They're sort of gonna be guiding you and telling you what you should be doing if you want to optimize your time playing. That element of like something in the game that encourages you to go for different objectives hasn't really existed in other leagues. Tasks exist, but tasks are the same for everyone. So if you were to come up with a true meta plan, it would be the same for everyone, right?
Yeah, technically there is an optimal path.
Area.
Right.
Yeah, do these tasks and pick this relic, and that's like everyone should do that, and then everyone would get really highly rated or whatever. But in this league, there is a little bit of RNG into it. Not enough to determine your rank, but it is enough to kind of like spice it up and push players to create their own path in a way. On top of that, it's really difficult, this league, to like it requires more theory crafting and more smart choices to play optimally, because you have the base effects and the set effects that are going to be they can be combined in thousands of ways, and you got to be really smart with how you sort of deal with the cards that you've been dealt.
Realizing that as you play the game, you get an RNG fragment. Suddenly that might just determine the things that you're going to be doing for the next few hours. And then maybe you'll get another random thing, and then that determines your next step. Like, it's going to be so hard to communicate your journey to like someone else, because you're like, oh, I'm this far, but that really doesn't like mean anything to someone else that you're talking to. That's incredible.
That gets me really excited. Can I just take a moment now to talk about the thing I heard in your video?
Okay, really, yes.
There's two things, right?
What's up?
So if you want some material to start theory crafting, I know a lot of people are in this situation now where they feel like they are just waiting for information, and
Okay.
until then they can't really do anything because they're like, well, we have already squeezed out everything from what we got. I've done my fair share of research. No one has really talked about this thing. Everyone is talking about like which area is the starting area, which in my opinion is like
Doesn't matter too much.
overrated information.
Absolutely.
It's like that'll be useful the first few hours, and then that'll be whatever. Then the skills, which are fairly important, I would say, but that's also more of a, day 1, day 2, day 3 thing. But what no one is talking about is the unlocks and the order of the unlocks. We can assume, to the best of our abilities at least, that everything will be priced in a fair way, right? That's we can at least assume and guess that it will be like that. Not even I know the final numbers of it. Something like chambers will be really expensive, something like mole will be really cheap, for example. So with that knowledge, we can sort of lay down a path for our account, because fragments will sort of interfere with that and maybe throw things like scramble your plan around a little bit. But largely we can really think about, what piece of content, what skill do I unlock first? When I have that skill, what task can I do then to unlock this and to unlock that? It's all a chain of like order of unlocks and tasks. And I've seen nothing at all about that. And it's just like, that's probably going to matter the most.
Flippy says that every single person who has ever thought about Leagues 3 has been doing it wrong so far. The most valuable thing that we can spend our time doing is talking about what content is valuable. And just by determining that question, we can say, that's what you should go for. That's what you should unlock. And even if it's like a big, grand thing, well, you have to just find a way to unlock the steps leading up to that thing.
I would say, don't think about what is most valuable, because we should assume that whatever is most valuable will also cost the most. So think as everything as somewhat of equal value, and then decide what you think would be the optimal order to unlock it. So if you look at like all the skills and all the bosses, just like think, we know most of the tasks already. You covered that on stream as well. We know that the tasks will look largely the same. So looking back at Trailblazer tasks and sort of where we want to progress our account, because Leagues is also about having fun, then we can
primarily
sort of think that in the future I want to do this and this and this on my account. Which skills and which bosses do I unlock to get there? When I was sitting playtesting, I confirmed my beliefs for myself that this league, you can be extremely active, way more active than the previous leagues.
I was thinking the same thing. Absolutely.
Instead of instead of just waiting for tasks to be completed, you have 10 different things to think about, like what's the level of my fragment, the one I'm leveling up right now, keeping track of that, and how do I combine this with other fragments, like what activity do I do next, and do I need to unlock something for that, and if not, then what do I need to do in order to unlock it? There's so many new layers of strategy and things that can level up or that you can gain randomly. Like while you're in the middle of planning your grand scheme, you might get a new fragment that is super good for a different reason, and that might completely change your strategy, and you need to sort of rethink some steps. So in that sense, you can always do something. If you're the type of person who's like just sitting staring at your RuneScape character because you don't have anything else to do and you don't want to play 2 accounts, this is perfect for you, because you will be able to fill that time.
So as I was pondering the whole like module design of the relic fragments, the fact that you can just unequip, re-equip, if that is like an appropriate verb to use, equipping.
Yeah, that's fine.
The fact that like that's the case, it means that there's going to be so many different pieces of content that I feel like it's going to be, and I've said this phrase, that this league is going to be extremely execution heavy. I think along the same lines as what you were saying, less AFK. Here's a curiosity that I don't 100% know or understand. Let's say I get a fragment that is in connection with woodcutting.
Sure, yeah.
If I have that equipped, obviously when I go and like chop a log, I'll get 1 experience on that fragment. Do you only get experience on that fragment if you're like doing wood cutting things, or like do you get experience if you're like doing like scaling things?
You only get you get experience if you're gaining any experience.
Any
We had a
experience?
large,
Oh,
yeah, I think so at least. We had a large debate around this exact topic
okay.
because some people argued that it should be related to the skill you're doing because thematically that would be cool. You're doing woodcutting, which is leveling up the woodcutting fragment. But what I argued is that completely that removes a large portion of free choice and sort of tunnels you into a certain way of playing. Instead of fragments being this cool thing which you can combine in order to reach your optimal strategy, they become almost like a, well, I got this fragment, so now I have to do this. And I didn't want it to go into that direction. I still think leagues as a whole should be a very, very free experience, which is like, your success should be because of your personal input. Obviously playtime plays a big role, but also because of like your strategy and your choices and the fact that you can play the way you want to play instead of how the game tells you to play.
That big time changes the way that I'm thinking about these fragments and training the fragments. I thought when I was looking at Golden Brick Road and Mother's Magic Fossils that I would have to be doing agility to train up the Golden Brick Road. But you're saying that, like, no, just, like, have them equipped, and you could, like, fight a cow, and then everything's, like, gaining experience.
Yes, and also, now I remember that during this whole discussion that we had, people were also saying that well, that's just going to result in people finding out the most efficient way of leveling a fragment and only doing that. But I believe and I hope that that's never really going to be the case. If you have a whole setup of combat fragments that really boosts you in combat, why would you step aside and do a meaningless activity that only levels up your fragments but doesn't progress you in any sort of way? Why would you sit and do that for 20 hours instead of at the same time doing a bunch of progress with tasks mainly, but also like, relevant levels and objectives? And most likely, if you're doing that, you will always be equipping the fragments that are relevant to the activity you're doing. So you will most likely end up doing combat when leveling up combat fragments.
Most likely
naturally,
you would.
In a way more natural way than the game saying you have to do this.
There was an idea in my Discord. They said, why not just go to the blast furnace and do that thing where you get like 2 strength experience every 2 ticks? Well, one thing is that the fragments only get 1 experience every 4 ticks, correct?
Yes, I think that's the cap that we had at the time.
And then the other thing is like, just play the game and you're pretty much gonna max out your experience rates anyway.
Exactly, it's not like you will be less efficient for sure than if you were sitting at blast furnace, right?
Yeah,
it's like gonna be, you're maybe gonna operate at a 50 to 75% efficiency rate if you're doing other activities. I mean, because it's not gonna proc every 4 ticks, but
that's a good call.
Probably way more efficient. The only exception is like if you're questing, but even then you could just
bring
some fletching stuff with you. So
that'd be huge. Yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah. If you're just like walking along, just like equip 4 non-quest related things. Maybe you've got like 1 quest related fragment. That makes sense. When you're like bringing fletching supplies, it's always the adding feathers to shafts that's like the really boring part because it's like less experience. But now it's great. Now it's awesome.
Super good.
Because it's given the same amount.
There's even some fragment that buffs fletching in some way, and gives you some additional random perk for doing fletching. You never know. I don't even know. This is definitely the league where you can be most creative, I would say. Assuming everything goes right, it's like creativity and adaptability will be so rewarded compared to the other leagues.
The leagues have been going up in complexity in a pretty healthy and exciting way thus far. Would you agree with that? I think Twisted was decently simplistic because we just did the area lock thing. Then Trailblazer, there was like, couple of currencies or like rewards. You get the relics and land masses. And now we're just going to be like equipping all kinds of different like gear setups all the time. It's really exciting.
Yeah. And there can definitely be too much of that, right? Like we could
That is true.
This league could very well be the cap of how complex a league should be.
We might have hit the sweet
spot.
spot.
X amount of weeks to play. Like if you had a year to play, maybe this complexity wouldn't even be enough. But you need to allow more casual players to understand and get into the game loop, and you also need to give people reasonable time to not just learn how everything works, but to enjoy the league as well before it ends.
Can you say anything about this? Like, we're fishing Carambois right now. We're getting 50 experience per hit. That's like a decently normal experience drop. Does the chance to like get a fragment increase like really significantly if all of a sudden you're hitting like 1,000 per tick?
Yeah, sure. There's like a fair graph that I think Oasis created that scales with the XP gained, to avoid like getting guaranteed fragments, obviously, but from like insanely large XP drops. But also, I think it fairly follows the amount of XP you're getting, so you're not really getting a huge benefit from doing smaller,
okay. So it's kind of like
faster, smaller XP drops or slower, bigger ones.
It's like a linear progression rather than like if you really focus on getting a big one, there would be an exponential benefit. It
is almost linear. It's not completely linear.
Gotcha. It doesn't really make too much sense to like focus on getting big experience drops to get fragments then. This is like an unimportant question, but let's just say I wanted to get an absolutely absurd experience drop then by doing wines. And then I did a whole bunch of wines and got a 2 million experience drop. Would that count as like a bunch of wines or just like one giant experience drop?
It would be one.
It'd be one. So there's...
Yes, so it's literally, you can think of it like as when the experience visually drops.
Okay.
That's counted as one action.
So there's a chance that if you're doing wines, you probably should split that up and take like a bunch of like 10k drops rather than like a 2 million if you're going for fragments.
Yeah, I don't know what the cap is. I think Oasis wrote the cap somewhere. I think, don't quote me, but I think he wrote it somewhere. So if you're interested, you might want to go like search his name on the league's Discord or look at his tweets.
Okay, that could be good. What do you think, not knowing much, what do you think that you want to do that will deliver some good value to your account as you play? We have hinted at like Wintertod being somewhat of a comfort food for new Iron Men. People were talking about Temperos for sure in the exact same way. Assume that all skills are locked just for the fun of it?
Yeah. No, just for the sake of me not saying anything stupid.
Gotcha.
So let's assume all skills are locked. Because you could apply the same logic, like no matter which skills are unlocked.
That's a good point.
So the first thing I would do would be to just go to the task list and see where can I find bursts of points. Where can I even like looking back to Trailblazer League, like where did I go and I felt like, oh, this area or this content gave me a juicy size of points to get me started with whatever I was doing next. So I don't know if Wintertod had that many tasks in Twisted League. I think there's quite a few tasks, and some of them I said in a live stream as well for Old School have been removed because obviously with Twisted League we had a huge portion of tasks for only Seiya.
Exactly.
And it wouldn't have been fair to keep like 50 tasks for Wintertod and then have 10 for Temperos. That would have been crazy, right? So it has been downscaled a bit.
I will say that if I ever bring value, it's always going to be in the sense that like I'm excited for the thing. And I gotta let you know that like leagues, it is so exciting. Like it's really sick to have like the seasonal content that is a race on steroids with just like superpowers. The only like downside of leagues is, and I've seen people mention this, is that when they have to go back to the main game, all their dopamine is gone.
It's heavy. It's the, I like to look at it as what is it called? There's something called like dopamine withdrawal, I think, like some method that people use, when they have a way too high standard of dopamine intake. So they go and they do like they unplug their computer.
They go in the desert for a month.
Unplug their whatever.
Dopamine detox. Hey, there you go.
That's what it's called. So I like to think of the time between the leagues as a dopamine detox, where you go back to normal, you get used to the normal, so that next time you play, it feels just as exciting again.
Flippy, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much for talking. It's so cool to just like talk to someone who so obviously says the words of someone who has been thinking about RuneScape for a long time in a professional setting. Excuse me? No. Can we have a player mod around here? A player mod! He streams from time to time. You can go over to him and follow him on his Twitch account. Guys, I went to Nex last night. Had a good time. I got like 4 Torva plate bodies, 7 helmets. It was a good time. And good luck out there, everybody. Good luck. Thanks for being here. Have a great day. Bye-bye.